Hi everyone, welcome back. For those who are new here, my name is Adriana. I like everything DIY, thrifting, sewing, gardening, just to name a few. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make easy pumpkins by using hardcover and softcover books. They're great craft sellers and inexpensive to make. Before I started painting, I wanted to remove the title of the book on the spine because sometimes it will show through. So I just took my finger sander and gave it a light sanding. Here you're going to see that I have 3 colors on the paper plate, but I decided not to use the one. So I am using the Waverly Pumpkin Chalk Paint, and I'm also going to use the Waverly Chalk Paint in Cashew. I'm using chalk paint, but you necessarily don't have to use chalk paint. Just use whatever you have on hand. But I do tend to like chalk paint because it is a thicker paint. I also paint the inside, that little lip, because if you don't, you are going to see it once you close the book. So just be careful, just take your paintbrush and just go around the edges slowly. I am going to give this 2 full coats of just the pumpkin color chalk paint. Now, when I do get to the spine, I do go a little bit thicker on the paint, just so it fills in where I had sanded off the lettering. After the paint is dry, I'm going to start adding the cashew color along with the pumpkin color. So basically, the lighter color is just going to give you highlights. Now, you necessarily don't have to use cashew. You can use white, whatever color you want, and however you want to highlight your book. So again, I'm just going to keep brushing it on until I get the look I like. I apologize, but for those who know me, know I like to jump around because while something's drying, I don't like to waste time, so I do move on to the next project. So here I'm taking a soft cover book. I'm going to remove the cover from it, and you're just going to get it down to the actual soft pages. For this step, don't overthink it. You don't need to be an artist because I'm far from one. You're just going to take a pencil and you're going to draw half a pumpkin. Now, if you really don't feel comfortable with freehanding it, then you can just trace something onto the actual book. After you have the pumpkin drawn on the book, now there's 2 ways you can do this. I'm using both. You can use an X-Acto knife if you don't feel comfortable using an X-Acto knife. You can also just use your scissors. I'm using both. So I just take the X-Acto knife and just start carving into the pages. As I go, I just remove those pages from the book. I also am going to use the scissors. So again, I use both, but just do whatever you feel comfortable with. This process is a little time consuming, but it goes by fast. And again, here, as you can see, I'm using the scissors this time, and you're just going to see the excess. You're going to just pull that back and tear it away from the book. When you're done, you're going to have something that looks like this. Now, remember, every pumpkin is going to look different because it depends on what size book you use, but you get the idea. Now I'm going to take my little finger sander and just lightly go over the spine of the book and the pages because from using the X-Acto knife, it kind of made them a little bit jaggedy. So I'm just going to give it a light sanding. Now you're going to see the pumpkin come to life. I'm taking my glue gun and I'm going to put a generous amount on the spine of the book, and you're just going to glue that piece together. So it kind of looks like this. This is the fun part where you're just gonna have to fluff out the pages and crinkle them a little just so they stay open. Now I do add glue, the hot glue here and there if a page is opening up too much. So again, you're just gonna have to fluff it out and get it to where you're happy with it. Now for the base of the pumpkin, you could use a wooden round that you can buy at the dollar store, Michael's, or any craft store. But I'm going to use a lid to a candle that I had. Certain things I save if I know I can recycle them. So here I'm just going to use my Waverly antiquing wax, and I'm just going to do 1 coat of the antiquing wax front and back and let it dry. Now I have a little bit of the antiquing wax left on my brush, so I'm just going to go down the edges of the pumpkin just to give it a little bit of an antique look. I didn't get this on camera, but I use a generous amount of hot glue and take the bottom of the pumpkin and glue it to the wood round. Now for the stem of the pumpkin, I'm using a piece of a spindle that I had left over from a previous project. You can use a piece of a tree branch, or if you have any wine corks, you can also use that. I'm taking the antiquing wax. I did go over the piece of spindle, and now whatever's left over, I'm just gonna, again, just bring it down to the edges of the pumpkin to give it an antique look. Now here I took some Spanish moss and glued it to the stem of the pumpkin. Then I took a ribbon I had purchased at Dollar Tree. I just make a simple finger bow, and I'm gonna cut the ends into a V shape. And now I just take a little bit of hot glue and glue it onto the stem. And this pumpkin is finished. Jumping back to the hardcover pumpkin book, I'm using these molds. I had made a few in my last video. If you haven't already, go check it out. This one is by IOD and it's called Lock and Key. It is one of my favorites. I do want to seal the book, so I'm using a Waverly clear coat. It's just because I had it on hand. You can also use Mod Podge, or you can even use a clear wax. After I gave it one full coat, I'm just going to take my heat gun to speed up the drying process. I decided to use the larger keyhole, so now I'm just going to give it one quick coat of the cashew color and set it aside to dry. To keep the book from opening, I'm using a piece of velvet curtain. You can also use ribbon. So I hot glue the fabric to the inside of the hard cover, and then I do the same to the other side. This will keep your book from opening up, but it also gives it a pretty look. Now this step is optional. You might like the way it looks, with the lighter pages, but I do want more of an aged look. So I'm going to use this product called Distress Oxide and just rub it alongside the pages. Now that I got the pages looking like it's been sitting on a bookshelf for a long time, we're going to move on to the next step. This is when you get creative, and if you can, use what you have for the stem. I'm using an acrylic drawer knob. I want to cover the hole where the screw would go, so I'm using a wooden plug. I had purchased this wooden plug kit from Amazon. They really come in handy for my woodworking projects. So I want to add a little bit of the gold tone to this book. So I am taking a Rub and Buff in European Gold, and I'm going to rub it onto the wooden plug, and then I'm going to also rub it onto the keyhole. Now I'm going to glue the keyhole to the book. I'm using a little bit of Titan Bond glue, and I am going to use a little bit of hot glue so it sticks to the book and you don't have to wait for the Titan Bond to dry. I'm also going to glue the wooden plug to the acrylic knob. Now that I have the golden highlights, I do want to add a little bit to the pages of the book. So I'm just going to put a little on my finger and just rub on the corner of the pages. While I'm at it, whatever's left on my finger, I just lightly go down the pages of the book. I'm not sure if the video is picking it up, but look how pretty the knob looks with that little golden touch. So I'm going to glue the knob with my hot glue gun. Give it a minute to dry. You don't want it falling off. Now that the knob stem is fully dried, I'm going to start decorating it. I'm using some ribbon that I have, again, in the cream color and gold tones. Now that I picked a ribbon combination that I like, I'm going to take a spool of lace ribbon that I had purchased at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to make a simple finger bow. Now, with a finger bow, you just have to play with them. You got to pull a little and get it to the size of the loops that you want. That's a perfect little bow. Now I'm going to use this gold velvet curtain panel. I actually tear it to the width I want to use. I must say it really tears nice. So here I teared a thin piece and I just tied it around the stem, and now I'm going to glue it in place because I like the way it fell onto the pumpkin. Then I'm going to take another thin piece, and I tied a golden key around it. Now, I had purchased these keys last year from Amazon for Christmas time. They really come in handy in all different projects. For the final touch, I'm going to hot glue the little bow to the stem and trim off the tails. Well, guys, what do you think? I must say this is one of my favorite book pumpkins I've ever made. I'm going to show you a few I have made off camera. Each one is different. This one I use stem from outside. I cut it down. I also made a bow using raffia and flour sack towels. I also had a few wooden blocks that I had left over. So what did I do? I made pumpkins out of them. I also used my silhouette cameo and added a few words like one has gather on it and the other one has blessed. That's how I feel right now. So blessed to have you as part of my So Strega family. I hope you enjoyed this video, how I upcycled a few books into a beautiful home decor, and they make great craft show sellers. And don't forget, that cutout pumpkin I showed you, I also made into a Christmas tree, and they were a big hit for holiday shows. Well, my friends, thanks for stopping by. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, my friends, ciao.